Hey everybody, this is Steve here, 40 plus BJJ, and I wanted to jump on real quick. I've been meaning to do this for a few days. I wanted to share a quick, not really a tip, this is more of a thought, something that just came up last week. I went with some of my students up to our biannual training camp. This one was held in Niagara Falls, and this is a subject that directly relates to a lot of people's experience, I've found. And I've talked about it a bit, but it sort of went to another level because it actually became kind of a theme of discussion at the camp amongst the instructors, and kept coming up with what people were sharing with the attendees. Basically, let me back up for just a second. So, you know, in the group here, we see a lot of very common types of dynamics. One of the reasons I started the 40 plus BJJ, this whole thing that I do in the first place, not just this group, but the whole series that's been around for years prior to this group, was really to support not just the technical aspects of jiu-jitsu as it relates specifically to people who are kind of at that tipping point of 40 and over where your body starts to change and everything, but it's also the support, because a lot of times it's the dynamic of how that affects you. You're in a different place in your life than all these guys that are, you know, 18, 25, even 30. They quite frankly are in a different place than you are in life. So that has to do, you know, there's the physical dynamics of recovery. There's responsibilities you have with job and home and work and everything. And, you know, it just, it can be very different for you in your experience. And sometimes you're in a peer group that doesn't totally relate to that, so they may respect you or something, but, you know, I get a lot of times people talking about, you know, people kind of give you props for being one of the older guys or the older guy or woman in the crew, right? So, you know, there's a little bit of a separation just kind of built into that. But anyway, in the group we come up with, or we see all the time, different common themes, right? So I've gone on recently, I did another live stream where I talked just about injuries, gave some technical tips for injury prevention. But you also see a lot of times how the repetitive injuries and how that affects your experience on the mat can start to become discouraging. You start to, you know, just replied to something the other day. I mean, we've had numerous posts about, you know, sort of like the young mat rats that just kind of live on the mat and think that every roll is got to be full-on competition, Abu Dhabi or something. And somebody mentioned, you know, having this guy just go crazy and put his foot in his groin and like start kicking him, and then acted like, you know, what's your problem? You got to take a minute. You know, these types of things, as you start to get older, and especially if you're a bit more mature, it irritates you. But at some point, if you keep getting hurt by these people, or you're always jacked up, or these guys are always trying to kill you, you start to feel like I'm not really progressing. What happens is gets discouraged, and ultimately the voices come in and we start rationalizing why this might not be for us and it's time to quit. But the thing I want to mention is sometimes there's very legitimate things. I mean, I understand not everybody who starts jiu-jitsu, this is going to be your thing. You might have other passions that either are already there concurrent with jiu-jitsu or emerge that become more important to you, that are true passions that your energy brings you there. I understand life circumstances. I understand severe injuries or something that may have happened to you on or off the mat sometimes. Hopefully very rare, but most of the time with any of these things, the number one reason why people quit is kind of a flip. It's actually two, but I believe they're flip sides of the same coin. Is a lack of social connection, okay? A lack of feeling of belonging, some sort of community that you have that gets to a certain level where it would be unthinkable for you to be apart from that, because it's truly part of your life. And that does not directly have to do with technique or anything. It doesn't have to do with jiu-jitsu. It has to do with the people. But the other side of it is a discontinuity between whatever brought you in for your goals in the first place and how they evolved and where you are at. People come into jiu-jitsu with a set of, you know, expectations, sometimes kind of romantic expectations. And then when you realize just how hard it is progressing, especially if you come in a little older, or you're constantly dealing with these guys who are also training along with you, but maybe their volume is a little bit higher. So as you're getting a little bit better, you don't feel it because they're always getting better too. And maybe they're more athletic, so the gap seems to be widening, and then your experience is, man, I just keep going at it. Or the only way you can kind of say I'm getting better is because maybe you're an older guy or something like that, but you're still really physically strong or something. So you say, I still kick those guys' asses. I'm going to give them a run for their money. But if that's you, then, still talk to me in another 10 years, 20 years, because at some point that those resources, physical resources, exhaust themselves, and then you're going to have those experiences, if not now, then later, where you feel like you're sort of being out physiqued, and then you say, okay, so then at that point, are you going to be like, oh, those were the glory days, this isn't for me anymore? My goal is to keep you guys in love with jiu-jitsu and on the mat forever, for as long as you live, as long as we can possibly do this thing. So here's what I was saying about the camp and the thing that emerged, okay? Part of it is again, we all know about the journey, not the destination. But at the camp, the theme this year was talking about the principle of connection. And this even came up, it wasn't just purely grappling, even when we did, striking MMA sections, things like that. But it's this kind of universal martial arts, and particularly jiu-jitsu principle about physical connection. And how that really determines so much of what makes the technical aspects the most efficient, the best way to objectively execute technique. But what happened was, almost universally, this kept coming up through the camp. The real theme of connection, more important than the physical aspects of martial arts in general, and jiu-jitsu in particular, was the connection amongst the tribe. Okay, and we have an international organization, and I have to say, I've been able to go, all across this country and multiple countries to teach. I've met people from all over the world who belong to our organization. And just like my training affiliates back home, with the gym that I came up in, and all the people I know there, and the Muay Thai school I go to and everything, but across the board, whenever I go to somebody in a school in my organization or meet people, they may be very different on a discrete individual level, but they're all of the same vibe. That's why we have this sort of motto called one tribe, one vibe. And I know tribe, sometimes people think that's overused, but my advice is really find a tribe. Like, find a place that matches your personality, makes you feel truly appreciated, like you belong, will challenge you, but when you feel like you're in a slump, as my friend Adam Singer, who's in this group, said to somebody who was asking the coaches, kind of a Q&A, what do you guys do when you're in a slump? Have you ever hit that wall where you feel like, you're just out of love with jiu-jitsu and you're not sure if this is for you and you want to continue? And, most of us said, I never didn't love jiu-jitsu, but I have seen how that can happen to people. But if you're talking about a slump, if you're talking about going through things in life or feeling shitty about yourself for how you're doing on the mat, a lot of people think that the coaches are above all that, that we don't have those experiences. I think instead the perspective we give isn't sort of from a mountaintop that we're above those experiences. It's that in our own ways we've all gone through everything that you are going through when you are questioning yourself and why am I doing this, and this sucks, I'm not getting any better, I stunk up the mat tonight, so on and so forth, right? We've all been through that. So one of the things that Adam said was perfect. He said, when you feel shitty about jiu-jitsu, when you feel like you don't want to show up, when you feel like you're just not getting any better and you're kind of wondering, like, why even bother, then put that energy into the people around you. Right? You should always be trying to put more energy into the pond that you're in than for yourself, because when you try and make the people around you better, when you focus on the jiu-jitsu and the community, you will absolutely every single time be better as a result of that. So when life's got you down, when jiu-jitsu life has you down, rely on your tribe to bring you up. give back to them, right? And the whole tribe will come around you and build you up. And that's the type of community you want to search out. So it doesn't matter necessarily, you know, you're going to go with the guy who has the biggest, you know, IBJJF competition record. What you're really looking for is quality of instruction, but the right fit for you, for your growth. And if you do that, it is a beautiful thing. And honestly, again, if I could go back to the #1 reason that people quit, that more than anything would be what will prevent you from quitting when times are tough or when other things are going on outside of jiu-jitsu that are that gravitational pull away from the mat, and then maybe you just kind of say, I can't bring myself to come back because, you know, everybody's going to be past me, and I think my time has passed me by. No. Become part of that tribe. Let the tribe carry you through, and continue to give back to it, and you will continue to be able to do this. And sometimes you're in the worst troughs of your life, and then the peaks will emerge again, and you'll say, oh, I'm so glad that I stayed with this. This is one of the greatest things I have in my life, both because I enjoy it, and it's gotten nothing, you know, then like you get to black belt, and it's a whole new world. And a lot of people think they can't get to black belt, but they can, and they will if they do this, if they keep with it, if they make those meaningful connections, and you know, just try and stay as consistent as possible over time. And then it's like a whole other world opens up. You kind of walk through the door that you thought was the top of the mountain, and then there's a hole in the mountain to climb. And it just keeps getting cooler and cooler, better and better, and a lifetime activity. So hopefully that helps perspective-wise, and I will be back on soon for some more stuff to contribute. So thanks again for all the contributions in this group. It's grown like crazy, and I'm really glad everybody's helping each other out. Talk to you soon.